so interesting. I mean, so this book, you said before, when we were talking before, different than your previous book, also about thinking about identity
More
in some
hopeful, yeah.
ways of Finding Latinx, which I'll also recommend to you, that book. But I think in both those books, you're really looking at these kind of complexities and thinking about identity in the Latino community and ways in which people can draw on different aspects of their identity. Another of the kind of things that you do is in New Mexico and Santa Fe, and talk with different people on different sides of a debate about what we should do with the monument to a Spanish conquistador in Santa Fe, and one person identifying more, thinking about their indigenous background on one side of the debate, another who, as you mentioned in the discussion before, identifies as a Spaniard, and thinking about that. And I think if you could say more about how this kind of came about, or what you kind of reflections that you have about that, of the kind of interviews that you had with people.
So this incredible professor called Dr. Frank Perez, he introduced me to this term called, which makes sense, no, fantasy heritage. So fantasy heritage, essentially, to simplify, it simply means this tendency that we have to whitewash our origin story, you know, to see ourselves through the lens of whiteness and our European history and ancestry. And then of course, I think, you know, I've experienced many times like some people that will want to identify themselves in, you know, in line with their being seen as Europeans and not necessarily as like Mexicans or Guatemalans or whatever. Not to get into, you can do the history more than me.
I don't know about that, yeah.
No, you can. But to take a step back, no? It makes sense because of this like really dark way that we've been kind of conditioned to like reclassify race when we can and when we want. The Spanish colonizers, of course, institutionalized a caste system in the 15th century, where, of course, enslaved folks, and we always forget, no, that we had over 11 million enslaved people, no, just in Latin America. So enslaved people were all the way at the bottom of the caste system, followed by indigenous people, followed by white folks, Europeans, and that, of course, in and of itself, creates mestizaje. Mestizaje, of course, creates this falsehood, no, of a raceless Latin America, no, where everyone's kind of ni de aquí, ni de allá, un poquito de todo. But more than anything, it creates this like permission structure for every single one of us, regardless of our race or our ethnicity, to always draw a direct line to whiteness, to Europeanness. To the point that even like the Spanish colonizers in like the 18th century in Puerto Rico, just to give you an example, like they even like institutionalized a system that allowed Black people to pay the monarchy money so they could reclassify their race. So that on the census, I mean, back then, whatever it looked like, they could be seen as white people. And there's a whole record and legacy in Latin American countries where governments literally pushed us to reclassify race. So I say all this because when then we come to this country, which criminalizes Black people and criminalizes immigrants and criminalizes brownness, we get to kind of dance, no? We get to like bounce around, no, and choose and sometimes identify as white when this country is not seeing a lot of people as such. I don't know where we are headed. I think that remains to be seen now, but I think we're standing now. The answer is in front of us, right? I think what happened in 2018, for instance, at the height of family separation, finally when this country saw children being separated from their families, there was this kind of like, for a second, but there was this like moral collective uprising and people sort of came together. And I'm waiting for that moment to happen with us. No? I'm waiting for our community to finally like look around us, no? And understand that when he said that you could only come the right way, that didn't mean anything. When we see the images of people being detained and racially profiled and treated in the way that they're treated around us, when they're seeing that family separation is happening, I'm waiting for this sort of like collective moral outreach to happen. Maybe it's here. I'm not seeing it yet. And so I think it remains to be seen. And I think that's like an open question. Like what we've seen so far, is it just the Trump effect or is it something deeper? No? Have some Latinos found a new cultural and ideological house in the Republican Party? Maybe. And maybe, yeah, right. And there's nothing wrong with that. We just have to be very open around what's happening. Because I do believe that if we have these conversations that are harder, you know, if we break things down to people, then they start to understand how tenuous white power also is, no? And so I think that's, again, that's something that we can work with. So